Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and we're going to work on a Mitchell 908 today. The Mitchell 908 is a follow-on to the Mitchell 308, pretty similar, a little bit bigger by comparison, but this one does not share many of the design features of the 308. It is an ultralight, but it does have a different spool setup and a little bit different ways in terms of bail trips and the like. But Frank sent this one as a reel in a bag project, and I put it back together for him, and then I realized that somebody had asked to see a video on this one. So you're going to see a relatively clean reel, but we'll go through all of the pieces that you would normally do in terms of servicing this reel and making sure that it runs nicely. So I like to start by taking off the exterior pieces, and we're going to start with the spool. This is a different spool setup than the other Mitchell 2, and then we will remove the handle and the like. This is a good time to tell you, if you enjoy these types of videos, please subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, hit that notification button. That way you won't miss any of the episodes that I post. Well, when I take the handle off and the side plates, I want to ensure that the anti-reverse is in the override position. Now, sometimes with these reels, there's a washer behind the main gear, and it's going to kick out that anti-reverse dog anyway. But I do like to keep it in the off position and try and keep the anti-reverse dog set intact. If it pops out, we'll show you how to set it. We're going to remove the handle, and then I like to take the pieces and parts that I removed from my reel and put them into a parts tray, and I use the bottom of a fast food container for that. This reel only has a single screw take apart, like many of the Mitchell reels, and this one almost to me reminds me of a baby 302. It's a very interesting design. It has that Planetary gear inside there, has the crosswind block that's held down. You're going to notice this is clean. Again, I've serviced this one already, but I then remembered that somebody wanted to see how this came apart and how it was serviced. To remove the axle shaft, which is your next piece, you're going to pull the clip that holds that crosswind block in place. Once that clip is out, you can remove the axle shaft simply by pulling it up. And then you want to remove the crosswind block. It's a plastic block. It doesn't matter which side that block goes on. It's symmetrical. And put those two pieces in there. Then we have the Planetary gear ring. And notice the orientation. This is a good place to tell you if you want to work on a reel that you haven't been working on much before. Note the orientations. Take pictures along the way. That'll help show you the orientation of the parts. In this case, the orientation is down with those two prongs up. And then there's the inner gear, which provides the oscillation. I'm going to remove that. And that's going to go into my parts tray as well. Okay, you can't remove the main gear at this point because your pinion gear is in the way. And this is one of the changes between the 308 and the 908 is how that comes together. The whole top rotor is different, but the pinion gear does mount differently as well. It's kind of a hybrid of a couple of different things. This one, pinion gear, is almost like the 306. All right, so we took off the rotor nut. Now, instead of unscrewing the rotor, you simply lift the rotor up. There is a tag key in here. If it comes dislodged, don't worry about it. And underneath here is kind of an interesting bail system. This uses a different bail trip. This one was apart when Frank sent it in. When you go to trip the bail, you'll notice this piece comes out, and this lever pushes everything in the assembly over to lock that bail arm in. And then when you hit the ramp, well, it's going to release that. It's going to pull that whole assembly back and release the bail wire. So that whole assembly shifts. There's a key on that whole assembly that's held in by the two screws. And again, when it gets pulled in, that releases the bail and it sets back. Okay, let's go underneath then. We have this rotor now, And the rotor, this nut is not holding the pinion gear on. And if you take that off, just a word to the weak-hearted, if you take that off, you're going to expose the bearings in this assembly, and they're likely to fly all over the place. That is not how you remove the pinion gear on this assembly. So what you want to do, there's a little clip here, a stud. You can probably see it better from the side. There's a stud right here that gets pulled out. I'm going to use the pliers to do that. Walk it out and hold it tight. That is the stud we're referring to. That's going to go into my parts tray. And now this whole assembly will pull out, just like that. And here's the issue I was warning you about. If you remove that top nut, all of these bearings inside here, and they're all individual bearings, well, they're going to come out of that race. And if they come out of that race, you're going to have fun picking them up, and hopefully you pick them all up. Otherwise, nothing's going to work. You'll also notice that there is a hole in that collar here, and the hole in the collar here is going to align with that stud that we just removed. So when we go to reinstall that, that's the best to do there. I do not grease these, and again, you've seen everything's well greased already. I do put a spot of oil into that hole, and I let it work in underneath the collar, and I do put grease onto the back end here of those gears. Okay, with that out now, again, I make sure that we're in the off position here, and sometimes you're going to find as you push the main gear out that this dog becomes dislodged, and I will show you how to set the anti-reverse dog if that's the case. I'm just going to take a little push, and in this case I guess we were okay. But this is the washer I was referring to that normally will sit in a case. Sometimes it'll pull out. If that washer does pull out, then this dog is going to become displaced. Well, that dog has a spring on it. You may be able to see it here. There's one tag end of the spring here. It goes around the post, and then it sits on the back of the collar here. You might be able to see it, you may not. One tag end of the spring here, around the post, underneath and to the back of that dog. This dog looks like a little bird, if you will. Sometimes I've seen people try to put that tag in this, for lack of a better term, eye. That's not where it belongs. Okay, it's in the off position. What you would do, and again, this has just been serviced, clean this up, get rid of all of the dirt, grease your shaft, and then we'll just show you quickly the reassembly of this. So that washer that came out goes in here. That's another reason, as I mentioned, if you back off this dog before you pull the main gear, well, you saw the washer came out here. Most of the times it'll sit in the case. If you have that engaged, let's just move that over to the engage, you can see there's no way that if that washer pulls out with the main gear, there's no way you're going to push off or save the dog without pushing it off. So keep that in the off position, and the installation is essentially the same as the reverse process. You're going to take your main gear and put that back in. And before I do much more, there's some grease here. I'm just going to go ahead and use the degreaser. This one is Purple Power. People ask me what products I use. That's got some lye in it. I don't like to use it much, but this is some pretty stubborn stuff. I'm just going to use it to see if we can't get some of that off before I put the rotor back on, because if you try to put the rotor back on with that, it's just not going to be an easy task. Okay, main gear is back in. Now you want to put that pinion gear in. I showed you the put a drop of oil into the hole for the collar, put a drop of oil on the bearings, and even though we've just done this, put some grease onto the pinion gear itself. Find the hole in the stud, or in that collar, line it up with the hole in the case. This is the hole in the case right there. So just find it, kind of eyeball it, then just simply push it in. until you see the holes aligned. Now those holes are aligned. Now you can take that little stud, and if you weren't paying attention, there's a ramped up side of the stud, kind of shaved, that goes up top. And just kind of work that in. May take you a couple of tries if that isn't perfectly aligned. So while I'm, I lost the alignment on that. While I'm kind of playing around with this thing, I want to suggest to you, if you need an assist while you're working on your reel, if you have a question, if you leave that in the comment section, I'll be happy to try and answer that question for you and get you back on track. And sometimes that's just kind of historical questions. Those are welcome as well. Folks want to know about when the reels were made, and maybe where they were made, and maybe the properties of the reels. I'll be happy to try and answer those for you as well. Well, I'm just having a little bit of an issue here. There we go, it's in now. And just I use a pliers to push that in, but if you have hand strength, you can do that as well. So that's your setup on your ramp structure. And now what I like to do generally is put the handle back on at this point, just to hold that main gear in place. But the questions could be on any reel. It doesn't have to be on this one. And but if you leave it in the comment section, I do try to answer those for you. Well, before you go anywhere, just give it a turn, and it's a beautiful turning reel. Next up then, again, we're kind of reversing the pattern. So you're going to take that little oscillation gear, and you're going to take the planetary ring that sits inside. I got lucky there. It just happened that it meshed up right away. Sometimes these teeth will not mesh correctly in the thing. Just turn the handle a little bit. Eventually you'll find out where that belongs. Again, these are all greased up already. I'm not going to re-grease for this demonstration. You want to take the slot in the oscillation gear and make that over the stud on the gear itself. And I guess I'm a little bit ahead of myself. You want to put the rotor back on. This is a straight hole on the rotor, so that's going to just go on easily. But now you've got a D kind of a thing. You've got a straight line on one side and 3/4 of a circle. So you need to find the flat spot on the pinion gear. That flat spot is going to correspond with the straight line on the hold fast. And now you'll notice we're out of alignment, so just rotate the top until you can press down and seat that key on the shaft inside those slots. Now this is a 12mm nut, and I use a Mitchell tool for this, but you don't have to. If you have a 12mm socket, any old 12mm socket will do in this one, and just tighten it down nicely. All right, we still have that block in place. I was kind of holding it there. There are 2 holes in the axle shaft right there, and those are going to accept the little clip just like that once it goes through the crossline block. So we're going to take that axle shaft now and put that in play. You're going to align those 2 holes with the 2 holes in the crossline block, and you want to make sure that axle shaft seats into the bottom. With that in place, go ahead and put the clip in. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more luck centering that clip than we did with the pinion gear stud. And that's it. Now if we turn the reel now, you'll see how that planetary gear provides the oscillation. So notice this is not straight up and down, up and down, up and down, which is what the modern day oscillation gears for the most part do. This has a varying pattern of up and down. You'll see 2 times up top, 3 times up top, then it drops low and does the repeat pattern there and comes up. That's to provide more even line wind on that spool. Well, we can close the bottom up now. There's a little cover that goes on, and we'll just tighten that down. Again, very much like a miniature 302 almost. And then let's just go over here for a moment, because this spool is different. If you have the normal Mitchell spools, you know that up top there you have a tension ring and a washer. This one is more of a traditional set on the washers of a more modern reel. So you still have the snap-on spool. I'm going to push that through. And this is kind of what the bottom of a Mitchell spool would look like. You have a Teflon ring there, and you have a click ring for the click arm here, which is going to make the noise when it's going in anti-reverse or letting drag out. There's a clip inside here. We're going to show you everything. There's a clip inside the spool which is holding this drag set on. And you need to just kind of bring that up and out of the track. And this is a spring, so please make sure that you're careful about that, and we can dump those out. Inside you're going to find a cavity. In that cavity there's a kind of a fresh post here, and then there's a series of Teflon washers and metal rings. There's 4 metals and 3 Teflon. The first of the metals is one of these eared rings, and they're going to fit in the slide there. So that's going to provide the base for the drag system. You just want to get it in, kind of line it up, and let it sit in there. That's your base. Then you're going to use, what I like to do at this point is to put the post on now. So take the post, because this post also has that D structure. It has 1 flat side and 3/4 round. So I'm going to put that post in now. I'm going to hold that post. I'm going to turn it backwards, hold that post so that I can get the top in play. Next step then is a Teflon washer. You don't lubricate the Teflon washers. The Teflon washers are self-lubricating. Find the flat spot there and the flat side of your metal washer. Put that over. Second Teflon washer. Now we go back to one of those eared washers, which goes in the points. They sit inside the case like that. Last of the Teflon washers. Find the flat side on the metal one. Find the flat side on the post and put the last of the metal ones on. And these are tarnished, but they're clean. And then what you want to do is get that clip. And there's a groove in there now, and you just need to make sure that you hold that clip into the groove as you go to reseat this. And once you have the bottom in, it usually just clips in pretty easily. Hand strength is usually okay to do this. And that's it. That's how you service the top. And then you want to hold that whole assembly. I'm still holding that bottom there. You want to hold that whole assembly while you go ahead and put that adjuster knob on. Take that. Now, before I service this, but just use some penetrating oil on those little wings. You've got a 2-clip wing here that's going to hold that clip in place. And when you press down on this button, it's actually going to compress those 2 wings to allow you to take this off. But just put a light coating of penetrating oil on there just to kind of get rid of any dirt and grease there. Push it in. You heard the click. Now you're on for your drag assembly. And again, all you do is push down on the button to remove that spool. Push it back. Make sure you hear the click to install that. So there you are. The only thing we need to do now is set that anti-reverse dog back. And that's your functioning. Oops. That's your functioning 908 Mitchell freshwater fishing reel. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. A quick shout out to our first responders and essential personnel who are keeping us safe during the pandemic. Thank you for all it is that you've been doing. I understand we have yet another mutant in the works here on the Omicron. So thank you for all of the support and help and life-saving work that you do. To everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.